I've been dialing into meetings since 2020, and this is my first opportunity to meet with you in person, and I brought a picture of my sister. I lost my older sister to medical negligence, not just at one hospital, but at two. At the age of 43, she went into the hospital with a stomach ache, which turned out to be an intestinal infection, but that wasn't caught. Instead, she was kept overnight in the hospital, vomiting profusely, and then wheeled into an operating room for an endoscopy, an exploratory endoscopy. And for some reason, the anesthesiologist breached the medical standard of care and didn't intubate her. And she suffered an immediate, massive pulmonary aspiration. It destroyed one lung, and within days, both lungs were shot. She was on ECMO, she was on a ventilator, she was in a medically induced coma for 1 month. And I was with her 15 hours a day until they kicked me out of the ICU. I had to call my parents from India. And my father was a scientist, had a medical degree as well, in addition to a PhD, but was a scientist. And I had to explain to him what happened. And for those of you on the board who are medical doctors, I ask that you put yourself in his shoes. Having undergone medical training, how could something like this happen? It was an overt breach of the medical standard of care. But it happens. And by the grace of God and some wonderful doctors in that hospital, she survived. But she was left with 20% diffusing capacity, 30% forced vital capacity, tethered to an oxygen tank, and she was told to live her life. But what life was that? Stuck to an oxygen tank? And then we transferred her care to another hospital, research-oriented, and with a lung transplant program, and we thought she would have the best care possible. We trusted them. I personally wanted to come down to LA. I thought she would get better care there. I had concerns, but no, she convinced me. The team would do their utmost to help her. For 4 years, we went to the doctors. She had pulmonary function tests done quarterly. We saw her primary care physician quarterly. We saw her pulmonologist, who was the head of the department, quarterly. And throughout this time, nobody bothered to look at her heart. She's on supplemental oxygen, 2 to 3 liters, continuous flow. Nobody bothered to look at her heart. And what we found out 6 months before she passed away, she was asked to have an echocardiogram done for the first time, and immediately found to have end-stage right-side heart failure. It was one of the most egregious cases of negligence in this country I thought I'd ever encountered. How could this happen at one of the most preeminent transplant hospitals? She had, oh, by the way, she was being seen by the lung transplant program throughout these 4 years, every year, and yet still nothing. And then when she started asking questions, how could this happen without a heart attack, without any type of acute event? How does a 47-year-old woman who's otherwise healthy come down with end-stage heart failure? And you think at that point, immediate transplant listing. But no, they actually just kicked us out because apparently her questions made them uncomfortable. And it is a bit ironic to have this meeting at this time because to the day tomorrow is when we had the meeting with the transplant team, and they told my sister and I, as her caregiver, that if we ask any more questions about her care, she will not be listed for a lung transplant. No one has ever tried to silence me, my sister, and having to explain this to my father, he didn't understand either. She was eventually listed for a transplant. When we acquiesced, by the way, we said we will stop asking questions. And she was listed. But by then it was too late. And she didn't get the lung transplant that she needed. And I've been coming to these meetings and speaking on behalf of my sister because she's not here today. And what happened to her should never have happened. And I think it's a common theme with all the other families here today. We don't feel heard. And there are some outrageous, egregious mistakes that are happening, and we don't get the attention we deserve. And when we turn to the medical board, nothing. My complaint was dismissed after a few weeks. Nothing. And my sister's negligence case involved a lung transplant program. And through my own research and investigation and work with UNOS, the federal agency that handles transplants, I found some very disturbing details about how my sister's transplant listing occurred and how test results weren't reported accurately, and it impacted her place on the list. And all I know is she should never have died. She should have been given a chance. And I would have loved to have had the opportunity to tell the medical board that with my complaint, and I never got the opportunity. I never got the opportunity to share the records from UNOS. I never got to share the emails. My sister was inadvertently copied on emails with her doctors, and that's how we found out the gist of the mistake. I wasn't able to include any of that, and I would have liked to have the opportunity. And unfortunately, my father was in shock when my sister passed away, and I lost him just a few months ago. And the pain and heartbreak he felt losing his eldest daughter, having been trained in the medical field to have something like this happen, and you know, a variety of physicians breach the medical standard of care, and there's no justice. It broke his heart. And I just ask for those of you who are physicians on the board to put yourself in his place. If you had lost your oldest child under circumstances when you could see the breach of the standard of care, it can happen to anybody. I mean, I didn't know this injustice existed. I used to represent hospitals and insurance companies as a banker. I had no idea these mistakes happen. And having gotten to know many of the other patient advocates over the years, I'm shocked it continues to happen, and we have to change. We have to do something. And I do want to commend you for coming down to Bakersfield. I think it's remarkable what you're doing in the area of maternal health. And I hope that we'll have your attention in other areas of reform, because we do need change. We do need to help patients in California. We need to do more. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment, and it is